pretty much every real manufactured good in the United States is controlled by China. So it's not just critical minerals, it's other upstream raw materials. So yes, absolutely. Can China crater America's economy tomorrow? Absolutely.
So China has hit back hard against those American tariffs on Chinese goods. China's placed 84% tariffs on US imports. That's up 50%. And it matches the increase on Chinese goods announced by the US administration, which takes those tariffs to 104%. The world's two superpowers are waging an escalating economic war. Ambassador Jameson Greer, who's President Trump's trade representative, has just been telling a Senate Finance Committee the tariffs had to happen.
I think we'll find that American businesses are much more competitive when they have open markets overseas. People talk about the high cost of doing business in America and manufacturing in America and growing in America. But when we cannot access foreign markets or we face barriers overseas, that increased costs. And it makes it difficult to be competitive globally and even domestically. We have to reshore manufacturing. This is an important way to do it. We can have tariff protection as we get rid of the trade deficit, reshore manufacturing, and as other countries open their markets, they can potentially have a different arrangement that helps us as we try to have reciprocal trade and get rid of the deficit and get back to being a producing economy. It's where we need to be.
The US Trade Representative Jameson Greer addressing a Senate committee. Now, welcome to the program, the Assistant Secretary for Commerce at the International Trade Administration during Donald Trump's first term. Welcome to the program.
Great to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Nazak, good to have you here. Nazak Nikakhtar. Now, can I ask you first this basic question on China? How far, Nazak, do you believe America might be prepared to go to escalate this conflict with China? Is there no limit, do you think? Should there be no limit?
I mean, that's a great question, and that's top of a lot of businesses' minds, and I think the president is really willing to go all the way. And the reason is pretty simple. Ever since China joined the World Trade Organization, even before that, it really worked to decimate the U.S. industrial base and, frankly, the manufacturing sectors of all of its trading partners. But just right upon China's entry into the WTO, I was on the front line. I was at the Commerce Department back then. We just saw a massive increase in dumped goods into the United States, subsidized goods, more and more market manipulative behavior, cartel behavior, overcapacity, and then at the same time eroding our industrial base, preventing us from having access to China's markets. This issue has been going on and has resulted in the systematic hollowing out of the domestic industrial base. That's obviously so critical for not only the U.S. economy, but then the applications for national security, compounded by IP theft and all of those things you know well. So the president had to take action. I frankly, no country has stood up to China and the way that China's predatory practices merits the country standing up to it.
Right. So I completely recognize your conviction that it's right to try to confront China when it comes to unfair trade. I hear that completely. I wonder how far it would be wise to go down this route, because we're now seeing that sort of tit for tat retaliatory battle. I mean, is it conceivable that the president, would you think it'd be wise to try to go to a place where Chinese goods are banned from the American market? Because there are those who say that would just lead to global recession.
Well, and there's a danger to that, too. All of our critical supply chains that we need to make, pretty much every real manufactured good in the United States is controlled by China. So it's not just critical minerals. It's other upstream raw materials. So yes, absolutely. Can China crater America's economy tomorrow? Absolutely. Obviously, as you pointed out, that's going to have massive spillover impact on the rest of the world. At the same time, are we going to get to a point where we're exchanging blows and the U.S. government has no choice but to start sanctioning China and the Chinese central banks, right? That also will certainly accelerate and lead to a global recession. So things are getting pretty heated. Things are getting pretty dangerous. We're hoping that we don't go, I think we're almost at the brink. I hope that we don't go off the cliff. But, President Trump is really angry. And look, Xi Jinping is not the same leader he was in 2018. He is flexing his muscles back because he's consolidated power, supply chains. He's ready to fight to the bitter end. The question is, how far is Trump willing to go?
Yeah, well, it is. And I wonder how far, because President Trump is in control of what President Trump is doing and thinking. No one can be quite sure where that's going to go next. And you talk about going off the edge of an economic cliff. It's quite an alarming idea, idea of this. A lot of markets hate what's going on. What can you say to investors who are worried about this economic fallout?
I think there's a couple of key points. I think the Trump fundamentally believes that the Chinese economy needs the U.S. economy to survive. So Trump fundamentally believes that the Chinese will retreat.
Right.
Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But I think once the economic costs to the U.S. markets, to U.S. businesses, hit that point, that tipping point, and they're starting to get there,
Yeah.
I think the president will understand that he still can hit back China harder, but he may need to pivot strategy. And I think
pivot strategy. I mean, and you're a big supporter of the president. Completely understand that. But your prediction is, as the heat becomes unbearable, the president will look for an off-ramp, a way to back down. He'll call it a victory, but he'll be looking for a way to back away.
I wouldn't necessarily say back down, because he's a New Yorker. He's never going to back down, right? But what he has always demonstrated is sort of flexibility and strategy. He's going to try a tactic. If it doesn't work, he's going to try another strategy. He might work more closely with other countries to isolate China economically, but he's not going to back down. It's just augment or pivot strategy from the path that he's taking. But certainly, as a New Yorker, he is not going to back down. He doesn't believe he does have to back down.
Okay, the staring contest goes on. And what about the plan to force companies to reshore their production, to bring jobs and work and plants back to the United States of America? A report today I was just looking at before the program, a major firm, Luxshare Precision Industry. It assembles the iPhone and other Apple products, and it's just announced that it's keeping its operations where they are in Vietnam. That's despite a 46% tariff. And the company says it's because the cost of the American workforce and the lack of a developed supply chain make it not possible to come back. That's discouraging, isn't it, to this strategy?
Well, yes and no. So, I mean, the administration understands that, Vietnam is a non-market economy country, and the Communist Party of Vietnam basically controls the Vietnamese economy and pulls levers to make to manufacture in Vietnam cheaper, to undermine U.S. and other global interests. So Vietnam is not sort of viewed in a great way by the current administration. They understand the problems. Now, I know a lot of manufacturing has moved there.
Yeah.
But to the other point of the question, and I don't think that manufacturers who've located operations there moving out of China are going to find that that's really a great long-term strategy, just for the reasons I explained.
Okay.
But, then to your question is everything going to come back to the United States? Certainly not. I think on some level, the president and his administration understand that. They want to bring certainly back as much as they can to the United States, but let's be, realistic about it. We aren't going to have the energy to support every single manufactured item. We're not going to have the workforce to support it. And obviously these things have lots of lead time required, right? And so I think we're going to get to a place where we have growing and expanded trade with our trading partners as we sort of negotiate our way out of this friction, so that we basically have more of our supply chains in a healthier trading ecosystem. And then again, as much as can actually be onshore to the United States.
All right, Nazak, great to talk to you. Nazak Nikakhtar there, a member of the trade team under Donald Trump's first term in office.